Hi everybody, it's great to be here. My name's Laura Teare-Jones and I'm a women's coaching specialist and workplace trainer. And what that means is I'm not just certified to coach people, I'm certified to coach women. So specifically taking into account things like physiological changes in the body, such as hormones, different emotions that women feel, and basically the female reproductive system and how that comes into play as well. I've been working in this industry for almost a decade now, and more recently moved into workplace trainer position, which I absolutely love as well. So it's a great pleasure to be here today and talk to you about an introduction, and it is just an introduction to menopause awareness. So next slide, please, India. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about what menopause is and what it isn't. So first of all, just to kind of get the language correct and make sure we all know what menopause is, it's important that we know that the menopause affects anyone who ovulates. So generally what that means is anyone who has periods will go through menopause transition. And during menopause, the ovaries stop producing eggs and the levels of sex hormones, which is progesterone, estrogen and testosterone, fluctuate and then fall. It's also important to say that the menopause is a natural transition, though we do need to be mindful that it can be caused prematurely by the removal of ovaries, certain cancers, and certain medical treatments as well. So what I'm going to come on to now, first of all, is menopause. So what people don't actually know is menopause itself is only 1 day long, and it occurs 1 year after the last menstrual period. And it's after then that a person is officially postmenopausal, and they'll be postmenopausal for life. The average age of menopause in the UK is 51. So moving on to postmenopause, this is the final stage of the menopause transition. Symptoms can still continue for a person who's postmenopausal. They can persist for 4 to 5 years, and this does vary from person to person. And some people will experience symptoms until the day that they die. Those symptoms are manageable with HRT, which I'll come on to in a moment. It's at this stage that a person is no longer able to conceive. And I'll refer now to perimenopause. So this is the first stage of the transition. And the reason I cover this last is because I know a lot of people get confused between what perimenopause and menopause is. So perimenopause lasts on average for 5 years, and it's the time leading up to that 1 day of menopause. During this time, a person is likely to have irregular menstrual cycle, hormone fluctuations, and symptoms which can be physical and psychological. Though again, symptoms do differ from person to person, and I always say that menopause is like a fingerprint in that no two people will experience it the same. It's also important to say that during perimenopause, while a person still has their periods, they can conceive. Next slide, please, India. So when we look at this slide, it might feel a little bit like we're looking at menopause bingo here, and there might be people in the room today who can relate to some of these symptoms. There are actually over 50 different symptoms of menopause, though that figure does vary depending on the source, and that's because some of the symptoms are contested and some of them are direct and some of them are indirect. So for example, insomnia is a symptom in itself. Sleep deprivation, some people would argue, is a consequence of insomnia or a consequence of other symptoms. And so you will see, flying around different sources that say there are over 30 symptoms or there are over 50 symptoms. So most recent research says there's over 50 symptoms. And the most common symptoms are the likes of hot flushes, night sweats, brain fog, insomnia and mood swings. And I would like to refer now to some of the lesser known symptoms, and that's the likes of dry skin, dry mouth, dry eyes and stiff joints. And this particular group of symptoms is caused by a decline in estrogen, which is also known as the lubricant hormone. HRT can help with these symptoms, but if HRT isn't used, then I'd also advocate the use of lubricants or good quality hydrating oils and moisturisers. And I'll bring your attention now to new allergies such as hay fever or food intolerances such as dairy or gluten intolerance. And these symptoms can actually be one of the first signs of a premature menopause and is due to changes in the gut and natural histamine levels, which can change in line with hormone decline and long-term deficiency. Now, the most problematic of symptoms tend to be the more psychological aspects of menopause, such as anxiety, panic attacks, and low mood. And also just to say that many people can be sent down the wrong clinical pathway and be prescribed antidepressants rather than HRT or other solutions such as cognitive behavioural therapy. And this can actually occur if a patient presents at their GP under the age of 45 and is considered to be too young to be menopausal, which might not be the case. And again, I'll come on to that in a moment. Research shows that menopause symptoms can cause sleep disruption, which can negatively impact work productivity and contribute to diminished learning ability, attention to detail, poor memory, weakened relationships with colleagues, and this can all result in impaired job performance. Research by Health and Her identified that 54% of women aged between 50 to 64 choose to work extra hours to compensate for perceived productivity loss. And so what I would say is this could be, especially if you're a line manager, this could be a sign to watch out for if you notice that somebody's suddenly coming into work earlier or finishing later. There might be something in that they're perceiving productivity loss in their work. Next slide, please, India. And now we'll just go on to some of the facts and truths about menopause. So menopause directly impacts 51% of the world population, and therefore it indirectly impacts the other 49%. And you might not know it, but you will know somebody who is currently going through menopause. 1 in 100 people will experience menopause before 40 years of age, and this is known as premature menopause or premature ovarian insufficiency. And also to that point, 1 in 1,000 will experience menopause before 30 years of age. 1 in 1,000, that's not rare, is it? It might not be common, but it's also not rare. And with that would come additional challenges such as fertility struggles as well. And also just to say that 1 in 4 will experience no symptoms at all and they'll sail through menopause, but 1 in 4 will experience severe symptoms. And then you will have the people in the middle who just experience symptoms, but they don't feel like they are severe. So again, it's going back to that point of everyone will experience it differently. Next slide, please, India. Okay, so menopause hasn't always been an issue for workplaces, but people are living longer and women are now working well into their 60s, and women over 50 are now the fastest growing workplace demographic. Many are finding that trying to manage menopause symptoms whilst also maintaining their role is extremely challenging and resulting in highly competent, high-performing individuals finding their careers stalling, even derailing as hormonal changes kick in and they find that they're no longer able to function or perform at work. And these are people who have worked for most of their adult lives. They are very capable individuals, often in leadership positions, suddenly given these symptoms and finding that actually they can't function. Currently, there are 15.5 million working women in the UK, and of those, 4.4 million are aged 50 plus, and so potentially experiencing menopause at work. And as a result, 14 million annual sick days are taken every year, resulting from menopause symptoms, and nearly 1 million women have left their job due to menopause. So this is why it's such an important workplace topic. And next slide, please, India. Okay, so just to reiterate, that's 1 million women have left their jobs due to menopause. But what I would also like to highlight here is that's that we know of, because often when people do leave a job or taking time off sick, for example, it's not recorded accurately in terms of the reason as to why. Next slide, please, India. So again, just some more truths for you here. 4.4 million women 50 plus are experiencing menopause at work. 41 people said that their poor concentration or forgetfulness had led them to make mistakes. 29% have significantly lost self-confidence at work. 63% feel their work life has been negatively affected, and 72% say they feel unsupported at work. And what that means is there's a real opportunity here for employers and employees to really bridge that gap and bring those numbers down. Next slide, please, India. And thinking about what we can do in terms of supporting those going through menopause. We know that for those going through it, it is about making healthy lifestyle changes, taking medication if that's required, working on their mindset and having awareness on that individual level, and self-awareness is vital. But in terms of employers, it's about policy and guidance. It's about reasonable adjustments such as working from home, flexible working hours, education for all staff. And what I would add in here is it's about culture, because these things are very easily implemented as tick box exercises. So it's about really embedding culture of openness, trust and respect, so that menopause doesn't have to be such a taboo topic in the workplace. So moving on, next slide please, India. So this is just a slide which I'll let you read some of the information yourselves. These are lifestyle changes that can significantly help a person who is experiencing menopausal symptoms, and I will just highlight a few for you that I like to call quick wins. So the first one, get enough sleep. I think this is something that every person can relate to, and it's something we've all got an opportunity to work on here. But what we know is sleep can help to improve mood, energy levels, and also our pain response. Adopt a regular bedtime routine where you can. And I always say, think back to when you were in primary school and on a Sunday evening, what your bedtime routine would have looked like. I remember for me, my parents would kind of have me having a bath and milky tea and a book, and it was this lovely kind of slow bedtime routine, whereas my routine now tends to be more, I say I'm going to bed and then I put the dishwasher on and wash the baby's bottles and do a few other things around the house and then just clean my teeth and jump into bed hoping I'll get to sleep. So really think about your routine where you can. You can use a sleep app or a meditation app on your phone, but personally I say limit online and phone activity prior to going to bed where you can, and find whatever works best for you. Also, stay connected, talk it out and seek help when needed. Stay hydrated to minimise headaches and reduce brain fog and fatigue. And something else that I'll just refer to is exercise. So strength training can be vital for maintaining and improving muscle and bone health, and general daily movements such as low to moderate intensity exercise is beneficial for long-term cardiovascular health, and it can also help to decrease stress and also increase resilience as well. And just a few other to point out. Try to obtain nutrients through diet, but what I would say is supplements such as magnesium and vitamin D may be required. If you do choose to take supplements, be mindful of how they can interact with other medications, including HRT, and don't make too many changes at once, otherwise it can be really difficult to know what's working and what's not. And we'll move on now to HRT. So next slide, please, India. So HRT, hormone replacement therapy, that refers to estrogen, progesterone and testosterone. And testosterone at the moment is a little bit of it's a bit of a tricky situation because we know that it's not currently being prescribed on the NHS. However, there are trials being done to see what the benefits of testosterone as a patch would be. And as some of you may know, estrogen is taken as a gel or a patch, or a spray, which is transdermal, or it can be taken orally as well. And then progesterone can be taken orally. There's actually over 70 different types of HRT, which people don't tend to realise. Oral preps are the cheaper option, so they tend to be automatically prescribed. So it's really important to know that there are other choices out there. And what I would really encourage anyone to do is to go to the British arm, the patient arm of the British Menopause Society, which is called Women's Health Concerns, and they have HRT fact sheets, which can really help individuals to work out what's going to work best for them. And it's also just important to know that HRT shortages, which we read about in the news all the time recently, can affect symptoms and cause them to fluctuate. So if a person is being put on different preps of HRT due to their usual prep not being available, that can affect their symptoms and cause disruption as well. And that really is it for me. So India, the next slide, please, just to say thank you and any questions.
Hi Laura, that was a great session. Thank you very much. We have got a couple of questions. So do you have any real life examples of companies who have good menopause policies?
Yes, so I can tell you that there is a fantastic company who I worked with last year, and they're actually a construction company called Curtains, and they not only implemented policies, but they really embedded the culture that I referred to earlier. And what I mean by that is the CEO attended the training sessions. Every single training session we put on for line managers and for employees, he made sure he was there to introduce us, and that really set a precedent and a tone, didn't it, that this was important, not just a tick box exercise. So they've gone on to do amazing work with policy and guidance, but more importantly than that, they've really brought menopause and menopause discussions into their workplace culture.
That's great, thank you. And then the second question is, do you have any advice on how to make a younger male line manager feel comfortable talking about the menopause?
Oh, brilliant question. And I don't know if that question has come from a younger male line manager or not. What I would say is, if you're uncomfortable talking about menopause, take the word menopause out of it and imagine you're approaching the conversation like you would a conversation around somebody's mental health. So a lot of workplaces now will have their mental health policy. Menopause can be very similar to that. So sometimes it's just about saying, do you know what, I'm asking a question, how are you really today? You don't need to, I certainly wouldn't encourage anybody to say, are you menopausal, to any of their colleagues or anyone, full stop, but just approaching your colleagues with compassionate curiosity. How are you doing really? What's going on in your world right now? Can help them to open up to you, rather than you feeling like you have to dance around a topic that you might not need to dance around. And some other advice that I would give you is, after this session today, send an email out and say, do you know what, we had a brief 20-minute menopause awareness session today. I found it really useful and I'm here if anybody needs support. Sometimes just sending out an email like that or some sort of communication can really open up a conversation, because it allows people to realise that you're not going to shy away from the conversation and you do want to be supportive. But again, just take that word menopause out for now, put it to the side and let them bring it up if they want to. The main thing is, if somebody is struggling and needs support, it doesn't matter if it's menopause, mental health, or anything else. It's all just about being supportive as a line manager. I hope that answers your question okay.